If there is a silver lining to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, maybe this is it. It's speeding up the world's transition to cleaner power. The disruptions it's caused in world oil and gas markets has many countries backing away from imported fossil fuels and pushing ahead with locally generated renewable power. Ironically, Moscow's war will likely shrink the market for its fossil fuel exports. Russia is the world's second largest natural gas producer, and its oil production is roughly tied for second with Saudi Arabia. Before the war, Europe was one of its biggest customers. The continent got about a quarter of its oil and 2/5 of its natural gas from Russia. After the invasion, Europe made the painful decision to sanction Russia's energy exports. Moscow then tightened the valves on its gas pipelines. That left Europe scrambling to fill a big energy gap. To make matters worse, a severe drought dried up hydropower, and nearly half of France's nuclear plants were powered down for emergency maintenance. Europe had a dilemma. The continent has ambitious goals to cut greenhouse gas emissions and fight climate change. So how much would it have to rely on fossil fuels to make up for Russian gas? Operators plugged in 26 coal-fired power plants that had been offline or were scheduled to close. And Europe rushed into service new facilities to import liquefied natural gas. By year's end, Europe's greenhouse gas emissions from the power sector were up about 4% from 2021. That's not good, but it could have been worse. A big growth in renewables put a lid on rising emissions. Solar installations smashed records in Europe. Power from solar and wind increased more than 2.5 times as much as coal power did. For the first time ever, solar and wind power together generated more electricity in Europe last year than either coal or gas. And Europe's greenhouse gas bump should be short-lived. Those revived coal plants are set to shut down again in the next few years. And the crisis also may have accelerated the move away from gas. Take home heating, for example. Record numbers of European homeowners ditched gas furnaces for electric heat pumps. Installations jumped 53% in Germany, and more than doubled in Poland last year. The fallout from the war has spread far beyond Europe. High oil and gas prices have put energy security back at the top of national agendas. This time, though, fossil fuels are not the only option. Wind and solar power have gotten cheaper than coal and gas in most places, so renewables look better than ever. At the same time, major new clean energy policies in the United States and China are helping push the transition forward. Experts have had to revise their forecasts. In its latest outlook, energy giant BP expects about 5% more renewable power in 2035 than it did last year. And it lowered its expectations for coal by 3%, natural gas by 6%, and oil by 5.5%. None of this is good news for Russia in the long run. In the short term, Moscow did rake in the cash from high energy prices. Russia made twice as much money last year as in 2021. But with major buyers shunning Russian oil, the price took a dive. Since the invasion, a barrel of Urals crude sells for about $30 less than the benchmark Brent crude. Russia is still producing about as much oil as it did before the war. That's because as Europe cut back, India went bargain hunting. The country went from rarely buying Russian oil to one of Moscow's biggest customers, on a par with China. But the $30 per barrel discount means Russia is making less money from oil. And with gas deliveries way down, the finance ministry says energy revenues are about half what they were last year. In the coming years, the market for Russian oil and gas is set to shrink. BP lowered the amount of oil and gas that Europe, China, and India together will need in 2050 by about 10% compared to last year's forecast. Whatever happens on the battlefield, Russia's energy industry is taking a hit. It may not be a death blow, but it's probably not the outcome Moscow wanted.